here from the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. We are happy to be back. And for those of you who watch the show, not just listen to the show, you will notice I have different color behind me. I'm very excited. I painted my office over the holidays. And Paola is wearing earrings that totally match. We got a whole brand thing going on here today.
Correct. All planned. It was all planned. Yeah.
Yeah, it was totally strategic. Anyway, welcome back, everyone, to the Crazy Stupid in Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy, stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how not to do that, but to instead do smart, meaningful, authentic things that actually get our marketing projects to where we want them to go. We've got some people joining us in the audience. Ben, hello. Welcome to the show. Always glad to have you in the chat, my friend. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. As you might be able to guess from the title, the Crazy Stupid Marketing, it's somewhat unpredictable, a free flow conversation, if you will, around topics in marketing in ways that maybe other people are not having conversations about marketing. So it's an opportunity for you to get in the conversation. It's an opportunity for you to try on ideas and figure out what might work for you, what might not work for you. Let it go if it feels wrong, and create a test if it feels right. Or completely ignore it if you want as well. But what I can guarantee, it's funny because I was talking about this over the holidays. And what I can guarantee about the show is that there will be a new perspective you did not have before. So you'll learn, or you'll leave with something new that you learned, worst case scenario. And if you are new to the show, and if you're not new to the show, reminder, there's this fancy schmancy little comment section that is available regardless of what platform you're watching.
Connection.
I think, are we back?
Sorry, Trace. I don't know if it's me, but your connection was been a little bit funny. You are back. Yes.
Hopefully it's fine. Now we're both back. So, anyways,
we got most of it. We got most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Get in the comments. This is an opportunity to share ideas, share your experience, ask your questions, just get in the conversation. The more voices that we can add to the conversation today, the more robust we'll make the conversation. So while it might look like a conversation for just two people, it is in fact a conversation for all of us. With that, let's learn a little bit more about my very special guest, kicking off the 2025 series of shows. Paola, would you like to tell us a little bit more about you and how you ended up focusing on what you focus on, which is our topic today of account-based marketing?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I feel very honored to be the first one of the year and bring, hopefully, a lot of positive energy. Although we are talking about crazy, stupid marketing, but there's a lot of things that trust me. So account-based marketing, although it has been around, and I'll give you a couple of definitions of what it is for the ones of you that are not familiar. Although it has been around for over 20 years, I believe I had done a career mainly on B2B marketing strategies for big tech companies, but it was camouflaged, or at the very least, when I was working in Microsoft in Italy and Kingston Technology, Sony Mobile, Google in London in maybe 20 years ago, it was not labeled as account-based marketing, but I do recognize now a lot of elements of it. So I want to say that throughout my whole career, as soon as I started working at Microsoft in the marketing team, I was already collaborating with sales, aligning my objectives to theirs, doing account-based marketing without knowing it. But when I really became more of an expert around the whole way of running ABM, it's been thanks to the Marketing Practice, which is this global Oxford headquartered B2B marketing agency. Again, it's been around as long as ABM has been around, so 23 years, I want to say now. And I was responsible for the APAC market from here in Australia. And fully 100%, my responsibility was to run ABM programs, design them, measure them, moderating them, helping clients to make sure that they were successful with tech companies around Asia Pacific and Middle East. And I've done that for a few years now, and that's what I specialize as a fractional CMO. It's one of those things, I must have said that in other posts of mine on LinkedIn, that once a marketing person and a salesperson sees the effectiveness, the success of ABM, they just cannot look back, because it works. Simply, it works. What is ABM? It is a highly specialized, highly tailored, personalized marketing program. It is not another marketing campaign. It's not a plug and play, digital campaign, for example. It's something that becomes part of the whole organization. I define it also as a change marketing piece. Change management. First meeting of the day for me here. Actually, first meeting of the year. So apologies for that. Change management piece for the whole organization, where sales and marketing and product and customer success, they all need to come together and learn a new way of working together. What it does in a nutshell is it helps you select either one very key account or a very few of them. I'm talking between 3 and 7 accounts, and they could be either new or existing accounts. By accounts, I mean clients. I just don't want to take anything for granted. There are a lot of language use ABM that'll be just used broadly outside of account-based marketing. And so it is about selecting this one account or very few accounts and creating the whole strategy, brand, design, creative content, messaging, just to target those very few key accounts. So you can imagine how resource heavy it is, how expensive it could be. But there are ways to be smart about it, and also for smaller companies to be able to run it and take some principles from ABM and run it in their own smaller organization. There was a long answer, but ABM is complex.
Well, and I anticipated that we were going to get complex today. This is what we do on the show. We open a can of worms. And this is what we get to do. I'm just recognizing too that we have Tim joining us in the chat. Tim, always great to see you, my friend. Okay, so one of the things you mentioned as part of that intro, Paola, was a kind of an alignment that's not just focused on marketing. It's a bigger corporate alignment. And we've seen some other things in the last few years, things like GTM, go-to-market strategy, which is also something that is about touching more of the departments than just marketing. So from an account-based marketing perspective, are there things that you would say a business needs to be able to demonstrate in terms of readiness for such it's more like you said, it's more than just a campaign. So what might a business need to have in place to be ready for something like this?
What a great question, Tracy. That's so impressive. It's only January. Whoa, great. Normally, normally I get to that towards the end, but this is boom. Let's start with, I love it. Let's start with this. ABM ready. So a couple of things before I go into ABM readiness. You said it's not just marketing, and that got me thinking for the ones of you that are more active on LinkedIn or blogs, and they will already be familiar with ABM. They might have been exposed to some thought leaders, I want to call them. They're my peers across the world, not just in Australia. A lot of them in the UK and the US, actually, and in North America, that are calling ABM ABS or ABSM. So they think it, and I totally agree with that. It's misleading, really, these days to call ABM account-based marketing. It should really be account-based sales and marketing, or account-based sales. And now there is this new-ish terminology of ABX, which is account-based experience. So yeah, you're opening up there like literally another podcast episode altogether with that. Yes, correct. It might be led by marketing and funded, as always, by us, but it does for it needs it for the success of it. Everybody needs to be on board. So that links to the ABM readiness. I will never get tired of saying to my clients and people I speak to, if you're not ready, if you don't tick most of these boxes, and I'll mention a few now, unfortunately, it's not the right time for you. And it might mean that me as a fractional, or when I was working in an agency, I might be losing revenue right there, but and perhaps it's not the best business model. So yeah, ignore this advice, but it's just the way it's the authentic way and the meaningful way I operate. Also, it backfires if I see that the client is not ready for it, and they might want it. A lot of times you will have brands saying, I've heard Adobe is doing it, Capgemini is doing it. I want to do it. I want to just keep up with that. And they're really eager and excited, and they might even have the budget, and maybe they have the marketing team on board. If still, when we go through the list and I realize you guys are not ready, it's gonna turn into a failure later, and then that's when the C-suite is not gonna want to reinvest anymore. So it's really not good for anyone if you're not ready. A few elements that you want to look at is, do you have some internal ambassadors already within the organization? You don't need 20. You will need at the very least 1 or 2 people in the marketing team, 1 person, ideally more at the executive level in the sales team, that is ready to follow the journey, because it is a journey. It takes months to build it, design it, and then once it's launched, the sales team cannot step back and do their own thing. They need to be willing to continue to engage with the marketing team and all the supplier, the agency. So making sure that you have the key ambassadors within the organization that will back you up throughout the process, and they need to be in for the long run. I mentioned marketing and sales at the very least. Ideally, you have the CEO on board, and someone from product and customer success. It depends on how big the organization is. So yeah, internal buying, basically, that's number 1 thing. Another thing is obviously making sure that you have enough resources. And if you don't have enough resources to run it internally, that you have suppliers to be able to support you with that, because there is a lot of strategy involved in the upfront piece, but you also need research, insights, and then for the delivery, someone more hands-on. So at the very least, the creative team, someone to help you with the content. So making sure that once you design the program, you have all the assets and the people the resources that can help you, either internal or external. Budget, that comes without saying. So there's some consideration to be done there around budget. There's no point in having a good budget to start with, and then you cannot follow through the campaign in 8 months' time. Willingness to test the program. It sounds really basic, but yeah, I don't take that for granted either. This list is not I'm sure there is more, but those are the the most important key things that you want. You want the sales team to be open to collaborate and to show up in the workshops where they need to be involved in, to share the account plans, for example, when they need to share some insights, and not being protective and defensive. The more they share with the marketing team, the more we can guarantee the success of the program. Yes, I think those are the main things. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Sharing is caring. Tim is agreeing. Tim is fractional sales, so he's agreeing that the integration between sales and marketing is key. Ben is sharing here that he likes the philosophy of ABS, a holistic approach of engaging with specific clients and puts you in a consultative framework instead of sales or marketing. I think there's a lot. I mean, I come across this very often in these like marketing mindsets that are like not helpful for people, right? This is what marketing is. And like, maybe there's more to it than that, which is why this show exists. So Paola, another thing that keeps coming up for me, and maybe it's because I was working with a client earlier today in this arena, but if we're only going to choose a handful of strategic accounts that we're going to address from a sales and marketing perspective, what's the role of an ideal client profile? What are some of the processes that you've seen work in that arena? Because there's a lot of templates that people can get in the world. There's a lot of people who fill out templates and then fail to use them in a meaningful way. So what's the role of ICP, and how does it play into choosing those key accounts?
This is, again, another great question. This is where I recommend any company to spend as much, even longer than they would like to, at the beginning of the ABM program. Either if it's new logo, as they say in ABM, a new client, new account they want to go after, or if it's an existing one. There is a tendency from clients to wanting to jump into the program straight away. They want to see, they need to demonstrate results, obviously. They want to start seeing their money utilized in a campaign that they can touch with their hands. And that's when the role of a strategist or consultant, or whoever, is responsible for this around ABM, that's where the role becomes really important of taking them on a journey where they need to stop, they need to pause, and they need to have all the elements in place at the beginning to be able to make the decision. So what I take my clients through is an account, it's a metrics approach, which I call account selection process. And this will help clients come to a conclusion together where sales and marketing already are aligned in the first place to decide what account or on few accounts they want to go after. Normally the sales team will come in with, I have my list. Normally they come with 100, and half of my time is spent convincing them, well, not convincing them, just explaining them that it's not ABM anymore. Like 100, it's not a small number. I need literally 5. And they freak out. What do you mean 5? I have 600 to go after, and I'm giving you only 100, and you only want to run. So that's why a big piece of ABM is the education process that needs to start before we even embark in this. But through this account selection process, there is a whole metrics way of working where I have, let's say, 50 accounts that sales and marketing have put together, and then based on a few criteria that I would come up with based on the knowledge I have on the accounts and on the brand and the strategic goal that need to reach, a lot of different elements, I would have this criteria, and then we put weights. We go literally around the room, so it does take at least 1 hour, ideally 1.5 to 2 hours, but then everybody has a voice in there. So when I say everybody, you don't want to have the whole organization, but you have the decision makers from marketing and the decision makers that are responsible for those accounts from the sales, and me as a moderator. So I don't make the decision for them. I facilitate, I guide them through. And at the end of the criteria, you don't want to have more than 8. Otherwise, the list, keeps going. But 8, you can also go a little bit less than that, but around 8 criteria. And then you have each account. For each account, we go through this, we put a weight against it, and literally the Excel spreadsheet, I'm simplifying in this now, obviously, but and at the bottom then of the table, you will have on the Excel spreadsheet a number, and that number will tell you who's in, who's out, because there will be like anything above this value is in, anyone who's outside of this. And normally it always matches with, I never tell them, but it matches with the researches I had done before, but it's not me telling them who they should target. And they never, they never complain. They actually see that's the result of the time we spent together, the 1.5 hours we spent together. And it's just, it makes a lot of sense. And also we might start with a few accounts, but then a few months in, after the ABM pilot starts producing good results, that's when then the marketing team can unlock more budget. And then we go on tier 2, and we go back into the Excel spreadsheet, and we take the accounts that were left on the side. Criteria, as I said, I don't want to give a list that is definite for every client. It really depends, but it can go from the value, the revenue potential of the client. It could be that there is an RFP, a tender coming up in the next 12 months. So we might want to focus on that. It could be that it's an account that we've just lost or we're about to lose to the competition. It could be that it's an account depending on the new market, a new region that we want to expand into. It could be that there is a new set of solutions that we as a brand are launching, and that fits that new industry, new market for us. So a number of employees could be another one. Or another criteria that I think it goes ignored too often is, do we have the salesperson, the account team dedicated to that a client? For me, if the answer is not, that it's a line. Who's going to follow up the ABM program? We have a beautiful GTM strategy, and who's going to make it happen if we don't even have an account? Sometimes this question shocks them, but then they answer, oh no, we don't have anybody. No, we're not doing it. I don't say this. Well, now I am. But it's
it's actually something, Tim, who's in the chat, and I have had conversations about, because there's lots of times where we have marketing over here and sales over here, and marketing needs sales to participate in this front, and sales wishes marketing would participate in this front, but because we're not having those conversations, we haven't made those decisions together, that often stuff breaks. And if we have, I always say this from a marketing perspective, if you don't have someone to manage leads, why would I go out and get a whole bunch of leads, right? That doesn't make sense. So let's make sure all of those things are connected. And for those of you who are online and can look at the chat, there's more awesome comments that are happening in there. But Ben has a question here, Paola, about market cap, the size of company or business potential. In your experience, is there a minimum threshold of company size, market cap, that whether you would go ahead with ABM for a client? So, one of the things I'm thinking is that, okay, well, if I'm selling potato chips and I'm just going to sell them to a bunch of consumers at 7-Eleven, then maybe ABM makes sense from a 7-Eleven point of view, but it doesn't make sense from a direct to consumer point of view. So, are there minimum thresholds, and what are those minimum thresholds based on for choosing whether ABM makes sense?
So you're asking if the ABM makes sense for every company, or there are just some brands that should work on ABM and launch an ABM campaign. That's what I'm being asked, correct?
I think so.
If ABM is for everyone,
there's two ways I feel like we could interpret the question. One, if I'm in the business and I'm considering doing ABM, is there based on my ideal client, based on my ideal prospects, is there a threshold I should be looking at that would say yay or nay, I should consider ABM? Or if I'm doing ABM and I'm looking at a potential target account, is there a key threshold for them that I would want to consider as well? So I don't know if
Ben,
there's one of those questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, yep. Ben. I know where to find you, by the way. There's no threshold, and it's as long as there is budget and the company fits, ticks the boxes, some of the boxes that I mentioned earlier. Everybody can do ABM, any brand. I know it comes from big enterprises, so the Salesforce, the Adobe, Microsoft, IBM of the world will be the one that the companies having enough resources, a lot of budgets, and big accounts to go after. So I do, and those are mainly the clients I work with. But I am big on these calls, which is about also smaller businesses. In fact, even startups, not at the same scale, but they can learn from what enterprises are doing at a smaller scale with less resources, less budgets. But there's so many elements that they can take out of how to run an ABM and apply it to their own strategy where it makes sense. I'm also, again, a big advocate of the fact that ABM is not for everyone, and this goes even above the ABM readiness. It's just not for every brand. It's not for every type of brand. It's not for every type of organization, and it's okay. For some of them, a good demand generation, one-to-many approach, that's what's bringing results, and they should stick to that. So Yeah, I really hope I did answer your question. There is not, I wouldn't see like there is a threshold, so you can do, totally, yes. I call it, yes, you can, thanks, Ben. You can, I call it ABM Light. It's just came up with an LITE, where you don't do it at such a big scale, taking like 3 months of preparation like an Adobe would do. You shorten every different phase of the process for some obvious reasons. You would scare the founder of the startup away, or it would scare any smaller businesses away. Like even if I was going to present the 5 steps that I take my big enterprises client through to launch an ABM program, they'll be like, I don't have that. I don't have that time. I can't wait, 2 months before launching. And then once we go to delivery, I don't have the resources to do this, but there are still, you can shorten that. So yeah, definitely you can. As I said earlier, I insist on the fact that ABM it's a new way of working. It's a change management piece. So it takes time. And once an organization, whatever the scale, the industry, the size, once an organization has changed the way they approach marketing internally, even if you don't want to call it ABM, they are doing ABM. They are applying ABM principles to the way they are working. It's not a silver bullet. I don't want to put all this responsibility in ABM, and it does take time. With even the big clients, I started seeing results that are really meaningful. Yeah, after 1 year of running different ABM programs. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing for people to remember is that, well, first of all, a lot of marketing things take time to build and deliver. And in our world of immediate gratification, I think we're getting a little bit confused about what marketing can do and how fast that delivers. But I think the interesting thing is like, even from like some of the things that you've touched on today, even from a like entrepreneurship point of view, where there's valuable things that can be learned from the process. And that's one of the things I love about the explorations that we do on this show is even if you come away and say like, okay, yeah, I'm not Adobe. So maybe I don't have fully big thing, but I think I could do a matrix, right? Like that sounds awesome. And if I can like create I mean, I think there's a lot of value here for brands to say like, what if I was going to do ABM and I wanted to assess these companies based on my strategic goals? How would I assess them? How would I rank them and all those things? There's a lot of value that can be gained from that activity, even in the practice of what do I want to choose people based on, and whether or not you're going like really huge with big campaigns and going deeper, you're looking for like whom I want to connect with on LinkedIn next, right? Like the intention behind it is the same. It's in figuring out where does it make sense for us to spend our resources, whatever those resources are, in terms of building our brand relationships. And I think that is meaningful regardless of whatever size you are.
I want to say something to everything spot on. Everything you're saying is spot on. It does have the risk that people who are listening think, oh, that's so easy. That's easy. It is. It's a simple concept. It's different. ABM as a whole, or near bound, which I'm really passionate about, by the way, it's a new concept that comes from the US once again. It sounds simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. We might be making it sound easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So I want to differentiate the two things. It's simple, but it takes work and a lot of involvement of the right key people in there and commitment. Not easy.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I come back to. I feel like I say this at least once every time I write an article, is about intention, right? When we're choosing things to do because we understand the value of the activity, then you put in time, you put in resources, you put in budget, even if it's not a lot of money, it might be a big percentage of what you invest in. It's the commitment is the word you use, the focus, right? How are we empowering ourselves with the choice that we're making there to do the things? And there's also let's talk about this a little bit, Paola, because like you can go through the exercise of doing the matrix and identifying the accounts and all of those things. And I would guess that there are probably some parts of an execution plan where people often drop the ball. So can you share a little bit with us about where you see, like, even if you have this very clearly identified group of people we're going to go and get, where the balls get dropped later on?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many different parts across the journey of the ABM where mistakes can happen, and then you pay for them. Literally, you pay for them at the end of it. Yeah. Sometimes you only realize at the end. I cannot stress enough how important the first initial piece is. So let's say everybody's on board, then we've done that. But insights and research, once we know who the account or the accounts are, the insights and research on those accounts, what are their challenges? What are they trying to solve this year? How can we help them alleviate their pain points? All those beautiful questions that we asked you in the workshop. I find sometimes brands want to go too quickly through that phase of insights and research, and they're like, give me my go-to-market, give me my PDF. They just want to go straight into execution. So again, the role of the strategists or consultants there is to help them step back and pause and show them the importance of the phase of the insights and strategy. Now, I love data and data-led marketing strategies, even outside of ABM. I would not make any decision. I wouldn't even come up with a value proposition if I haven't absorbed and digested all the key insights and done the proper research on the account. So brands who fail to spend enough time on those and dig the right insights and research, they then might come up with a beautiful, shiny, new interactive PDF or landing page and blog post. But if it doesn't speak to the heart of the accounts you want to target, they're not going to listen. It's not going to work. So yeah, spending time on the insights and research, it's a big piece. Where things can fall off then is once we have a strategy that everybody agrees with, and within ABM it's called messaging house, where then you have the top value proposition as a result of all this beautiful work that you've done with the sales and marketing team, value proposition, the key pillars, the comms plan. I don't want to get it too much into the ABM way of using words, but sales imperatives are there, and just a sales place, and the imperatives are all aligned. Let's say we all have this and it's beautiful and it's based on insights. What unfortunately where it falls off is then when the creative team comes on board, and if the creative and this beautiful strategy doesn't translate into the execution. One way for me to get around that is to involve the creative team, so brand people, content designer, and already at the beginning of the process, even when they don't have to do any work, but I always involve them, and I always make sure that they know there is a new ABM coming. Those are the accounts that we've selected, and I just keep them informed. They don't have to, it doesn't involve too much of their time, but at the very least, they can start thinking, they can put a thinking cap on, and they know this is coming, and keep them very much aligned with the strategy, not just going them from nothing to briefing them with a really dry, Word document. And this is the strategy. Can you just come up with an exciting execution? The best ABM results I've had in my career are the ones where the creative team was involved since the beginning and could work together with the strategist. So myself as a strategist, once I complete the part of the, that ends with the go-to-market plan, I don't just brief this program to the creative team and I step away. I stay very much involved, and they like it. I'm not on top of them. If anything, I'm answering questions that they might have, because the strategist ultimately is the person that has been watching the whole process from the brief from the client from the beginning until that point. So you don't want to lose them. So the disconnection between strategy and creative team can cause poor results. Those are the main things. Those are the main things. And like, obviously, if for whatever reason internally sales and marketing stop talking to each other, if the sales team is not involved anymore, as they said they promised they would be, yes, and also if for some reason, obviously, there are budget cuts, that doesn't help anyone, because you want to keep, you need to maintain it. Most of the investment needs to happen at the beginning, but there needs to be some budget allocated for the maintenance in the following months. You cannot expect the campaign or the program to run by itself. Those are the main things that I would be looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And vendor sharing, I think we can all agree. The sooner we can get teams engaged, the sooner we can get them aligned. I mean, that's pretty basic, yet something we don't do that often enough. And I think this is the thing too, because for the creative team is a great example, because I feel like creative teams are used to getting delegated things. And whether your creative team is in-house or an agency, they're kind of the last to know, but they're creating the thing that everybody's going to see. Right? So the more that they can, even if they're kind of background observers of some of these things, they can see like what accounts do people get excited talking about, what are the things that they share in a conversation that maybe didn't end up in a document or things like that, right? Like they get to feel the vibe, and they get to hopefully get as excited about it as possible. So by the time it gets to them creating something, it's easier for them. I want to just like quickly go to the chat, because Tim and Ben are having a great conversation.
Okay, well, are you also listening, guys, or you're just talking between you two? I don't know.
We're listening too. Tim is saying the first step is often introducing people, breaking down the silos. Again, like you'd be surprised how often we just assume that people know each other, but they don't necessarily. So Ben is agreeing. Absolutely. Getting people to know each other builds trust and allows better communication and collaboration in the long run. And I think I wanted to call that out, because I think that word collaboration is a really important component in this, because if we're not collaborating, then like, again, we've sent the marketing team on a wild goose chase, and like maybe they come back with geese, maybe they don't, but we don't even really care about how many geese we catch here. They're like, well, what was the point of all of this? So the like communication and collaboration is such a big component. So let's talk about the communication a little bit. Is there kind of like a standard protocol for communication when you're looking at ABM maintenance and development?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for raising this one. I think with every client, I would work differently. Definitely having a rhythm, a cadence set at the very beginning, as if, before we've even started doing any research or understanding who the accounts are. It's also almost, it's something that the sales team, especially, I find they really appreciate, because obviously they're really busy, and we want them to be not locked in a room in meetings that are not necessary. We want the sales team to be out there selling, and making networking, building new relationships. So we are really cautious with the time we are taking from them. And something they really appreciate is when, at the very beginning, when we put up front to them, this is the investment, literally down to the minutes. Like, this is how many hours or minutes of your week across the whole, for the next 8 months, let's make it 8 months, we will need of you, down to even the person, you as a sales executive and your team. So that transparency, it's really, it worked. First of all, I need it myself, so I know who's in, who's out, and I can plan accordingly as a program lead, but also they can work around their agenda and their calendar, and they know there's not more that is going to be asked of them. Obviously, there can be exceptions, but I have to say they're really rare. They're really rare. And because we've been so honest and open since the beginning, if there is the extra thing that we need to ask them, and obviously we would justify this to them, like, we need this missing piece of the research, and we know you guys have this document internally, can you share it with us? They are really willing to do a little bit of extra, but it's never about, oh, we need you 2 extra hours and we hadn't planned for that. So having a cadence, absolutely. And within this rhythm, the marketing team is your main point of contact. So on a weekly basis, I would have regular, again, it depends on the budget, either weekly or bi-weekly. And it could be half an hour or 1 hour WIP meetings just with the marketing team. And it would be, and again, just the marketing leads, the marketing from their side, they can decide who from their team they want to have. In some of those WIPs, it might be just one person, it depends on what the topic of the agenda is. Obviously, as a good practice, I always share the agenda prior to the meeting so that they know who they should invite or why I'm suggesting to invite on top. Normally would just be me running those meetings with the marketing team, but occasionally if I need what I call extra, special guests, I will have them on. For example, if there is a data piece that we need to work on and there is intent data to be shared, I am not the expert on that. I know who to bring on board, but then I want the data guru from my team to be the person speaking in that meeting. Or if there is a creative team sharing something, I'll let the creative team, but I always make sure that I'm the one point of contact, the main point of contact that everybody can come to. The sales team is normally involved only at the beginning, really, with us, and they need to come to the first kickoff call when we even we even explain what ABM is, and if there are ABM trainings, they will come to those, but they only happen at the beginning. It's 1 or 2 sessions, and they're more intense, but they don't have to participate as much in those meetings. They will have to be there for the account selection, if there is one needed, and the strategic workshop. After that, they don't have to be, face to face with us any longer. They need to work in the background with the marketing team, but the investment for them is more at the beginning, where we really need to understand as much as possible about these accounts, because let's face it, and there's nothing wrong with that. The people that know more, that have more knowledge about the accounts, are the sales team, it's not the marketing team. So we need them there.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to recognize, and I think important for us to say as marketers, right? Like, this relationship between sales and marketing is pretty critical to making a revenue function work. And if we're not going to be open and honest with each other about what is working, what is not, what we know, what we don't, then we're probably not going to create an optimized program just by happenstance, right? We need to create that. And it's so fun. I'm just thinking, because I know Tim is in the chat, and Tim and I have lots of conversations about this sales and marketing relationship. And Tim, you should actually come on the show and we should talk about it too. But it has to happen, and it has to have a cadence. It can't just be every once in a while we go for coffee and we talk about stuff, right? It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And so, I want to kind of jump to the end of seemingly now we've put together this ABM program with really good target accounts, and we've done some of the actual marketing stuff. We are looking at the success of the program. What are we looking at from a KPI point of view to say that we actually have an ABM program that is performing?
The KPIs, it's really important to set them up at the very beginning. We are literally now going back to the kickoff session before we even have decided if it's a one-to-one or one-to-few and who we are targeting. And we align on what do we want to measure here, sales and marketing and the consultants or the person that's responsible for ABM. In ABM, traditionally, there are the 3 R's of ABM that are measured, and I always miss one. Oh God. Okay, it's revenue, reputation, relationship. Those are the 3 R's. Then sometimes clients want to add another one, which is, look, I remember 4 today. It's impressive. I'm impressed with myself, which is retention. But those three R's are the ones that you want to measure. What I like to do with my clients, and I have to say it's the number one thing that I love about the way I run ABM programs, is to split the 3 R's across short, medium, and long term. Again, something very simple. It's amazing the reaction I get from clients, oh, yes, groundbreaking. I'm I just simply split them between, it's just common sense. Short, medium, it's just easier to track them. And what I normally do when we need to align on these KPIs, I come up with some standard ones that we normally would measure across ABM with other brands, but the decision is theirs. What I tell them, and that's where I literally facilitate, and I don't come up with any decision for them. But when I guide them through selecting the KPIs, so through the 3 R's and the 3 times, I tell them, don't just make sure you choose the ones that you can measure. Again, something so easy, but especially the marketing team, I don't know why they want to measure everything like under the sun, under relationship. Oh yeah, we can do that. I'm sure we can. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. So my role there is again to remind them to pause, breathe, and remind them, what can you physically get access to? Like we internally, every organization would have access to different data sets or CRM if they have any. What can you? So after they do this exercise, then I go through each of them and I ask them, that's a great KPI, beautiful. Do you have access to those? And then they look at each other like, oh no, we can't find them. So because the objective of the KPI, of measuring the KPIs, is obviously to see if the program is being successful in the short, medium, and long term. But also you can already start taking the short term KPI, the results, and go back to your C-suite or the budget holders and demonstrate this is working, and that will unlock more budget. So try and be smart and measure in there the results that you can access to, and they're gonna potentially give you better results. So that they're definitely, they need to be set at the beginning, and then we align. Once we then go through the program, and even when we are in the strategy phase, we build the messaging house. We make sure that these KPIs align with each pillars under the value proposition. They're not set in stone. Ideally, you want to keep them for a good 6 to 12 months. But as we go through the program, we revisit them. So ideally quarterly, we look into them and see if they still make sense. Maybe the program has all the different campaigns within the program, they have evolved and we need to replace some or add more. Maybe there are events, activations, for example, that we're doing 1 year in and we didn't have anything measuring events. So they can be revisited, but normally the bulk of them stays there. And we, again, about communication and collaborating, we don't keep them just for us, just for the marketing team. We do share them, obviously, with the sales. One last thing on this, the sales team would focus strongly on the revenue. So a big exercise for me to take them through at the beginning is, that 3 R's is not just one. Revenue is important, but it's not going to be the only key for you to succeed in this. Relationship and reputation are as crucial to get you to revenue. So it's really interesting. There are interesting dynamics in meetings around KPIs. The sales team will only come up with revenue with revenue KPIs, and they don't care about the other ones. But then again, it's part of the change management piece. When the marketing team throughout the program, they can demonstrate, look at how the relationship KPIs, for example, in the medium term are unlocking those revenue possibilities. Yeah.
Right. And I think that is, because I think even from, if you're looking at like a strategic goal for an organization, a lot of times those are related to revenue, profit, like the money, and the speed at which it's coming into the organization. And I think if we all like just took a minute and stepped back, we would all realize that that's the output of inputs. And there are inputs that build relationship, for example, that contribute directly to the output of revenue. And so how are we doing that? And also, I mean, because I see this a lot, and I'm sure you see this too, Paola, especially because marketing and sales now are kind of overlapping in the digital environment, right? Like it used to kind of be that like marketing would be on TV or they would be the newspaper, and then salespeople would be in store or knocking on doors, and they were in like kind of 2 different places at the same time. Now, a lot of times we're overlapping our efforts. Marketing is posting on a corporate page, the link, like people are social selling on LinkedIn. And so like now we're in the same place at the same time. And so we have this really great opportunity to double
Correct.
down.
What a great opportunity. You just took my word. I'm like, what? We are together. Oh my God, this is a great opportunity. Oh, it's priceless. Yes. Yeah.
And so like it's a great opportunity if we treat it like a good opportunity, because there's also the possibility of efforts colliding and creating the opportunity to break a brand experience, which none of us have the intention of doing. But now that we're like thrust into the same place, the possibility increases that we can create something that's not aligned. And so this, like, it really is, I mean, like, specifically we're talking about ABM today, but I would say this is just like critical for a sales and marketing relationship in general, even if you're not specifically talking about it manifesting in an ABM scenario. This is like, how are we working together to generate revenue, to generate relationships, to build our company's reputation, because we're all contributing to that in different ways at different times, but as a collective, a tapestry, a mosaic. And if we're not connecting the dots in an active way, then we're just throwing a bunch of bouncy balls out to the universe and crossing our fingers and hoping they bounce in the right direction, which isn't a super dependable strategy.
And it's not a strategy at all. There's nothing strategic about that. Yes, in one of the recent conversations I've had with another company from the US, they were asking me something around those lines. Obviously, we're talking about ABM, and I remember saying, it was maybe quite strong thought, but I said, marketeers are wasting their money if they're not doing all those beautiful things that we talked about, if they're not aligning strategically with the sales team, if they're not focusing on the right accounts, if they're not doing all the insights and research piece up front, if they're not involving the creative team as soon as possible. It's all a way. You can still spend your marketing budget. I spent most of my career in marketing teams, client side. So many creative ways, just literally creative ways to waste money, to spend money. But it's a waste if it's not done strategically. So it's not. Yes, I know most marketing professionals don't want to hear that. But yeah, if we just pause and step back and have a more strategic approach, forget about ABM or what it means, or that it even exists. But if we have a more strategic approach in everything we do within the organization and with our peers from the sales, product, and the call center, creative teams, we're all going to win in the long run. And it's a better reuse of the money we are given. And it doesn't have to be expensive. What other big thing I want to say? I know I throw in there big names because those are the main players that have been historically doing ABM, but it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't. It doesn't have to. That's another conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ben is sharing here too. If marketing does not support sales and overall corporate objectives, then they're not serving a purpose. And I think I referenced it on this show before, but late last year, a survey of CMOs came out, and the percentage of I think it was 67% of CMOs feel like they're operating as a cost center in the business. And like, marketing is supposed to be revenue generating. And so if we've gotten to this place where a lot more than 50% of marketing leaders see marketing being treated as a cost center, it's because we've let marketing get to the point where it is a cost center. It's not serving a purpose. And like you said, I mean, I've also been part of organizations who come up with really creative ways to spend money in marketing that doesn't generate any money. And it looks cool and it looks pretty and it's well designed and we tracked a bunch of stuff. And like at the end of the day, it doesn't deliver to the corporate goals. Pretty content that does not move the needle is not adding value in the end. Correct, Ben. And so this is one of the things I love about the concept of ABM, even if you're pulling just like pieces of it away from today, is that the focus of it is in generating value for the business. And it creates the opportunity to have those strategic conversations about what is marketing's role here? How do we integrate with sales? How are we supporting the revenue function? How are we building our brand reputation? Instead of just saying like, go post on social media. That will build our brand. No, it won't. I'm just going to say it here, folks.
Yes.
Just posting on social media doesn't build your brand reputation. It's not a thing.
No.
There are additional things you need to do. Can posting on social media help to contribute to that? It can, if there is intention and purpose behind the activities, but the activities on their own do not. And so whether it's ABM or GTM or even just you having like really strategic conversations with your 2 salespeople, the point is that we are figuring out how we generate revenue, how we talk to clients, how we build relationships, how we do these things on behalf of our brand. And I feel like when you're having those strategic conversations, it's never a waste of time.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have reached the end of our hour together here very quickly, Paola. For the people who are watching this episode and are curious to learn more about ABM, where is the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn is where my magic happens. I will have a website coming up soon, but it's I'll still be very loyal to LinkedIn. So find me there, Paola Piccinno. Yeah.
Yes. And Paola is tagged in the post that is associated with this live. So you can just click on her name. It'll take you right to her page and you can connect there and tell her you saw her on the show. So she has a little bit of background of where you might be coming in from. And Paola, I just want to thank you. So like we grazed the surface today of ABM. There's much more depth there. So I encourage you, if account-based marketing is something that you've been exploring either from a sales or marketing perspective, don't let this be the last conversation that you participate in on it. Let it be one of many conversations that you participate in. Connect with Paola, connect with me, connect with Tim and Ben and anybody else who was in the chat who I might have missed because Tim and Ben were posting a whole bunch of things. Connect with each other and stay in the conversation because this is something that you develop. It's a process. It's an evolution. So make sure you stay in the conversation. With that, everybody, we are going to be back at our regular time next week for a panel conversation about creating connection in marketing. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And until next time, permission to do you, everybody. Happy New Year.